In the echo of loss, she found a new voice, and a new heart. The classroom smelled faintly of coffee, chalk, and paper, like quiet hope. It was Tuesday morning, and Emma sat at the back, her fingers twisting a pencil until it almost broke. She hated being here, hated the eyes that sometimes turned toward her, hated the sound her voice made when she tried to speak. The clock ticked too loudly. The lights hummed above her head. The world was always too much. And then she heard a voice. Soft. Calm. Like warm honey poured over noise. Good morning, everyone. I'm Miss Glass. But please, call me Jane. Emma looked up. The woman at the front of the room smiled as if she could see every nervous thought in the room, and chose to be kind to all of them. Jane Glass wasn't like other teachers Emma had met before. Her hair was tied back loosely, her blouse slightly wrinkled from rushing, but her eyes, clear gray and full of patience, seemed to hold the room steady. Today we'll start with something simple, Jane said. Not perfect words. Just honest ones. She handed Emma a card. On it was written a single word, home. Emma stared at it. The letters swam in her vision, and her throat tightened. She tried to sound it out, the way she'd practiced in the mirror so many times before. Ho, ho. Her tongue stumbled. The word got stuck somewhere between her chest and her lips. Take your time, Jane said, quietly kneeling beside her desk. We're not racing words today. The kindness broke something open in Emma. Tears threatened. She shook her head, embarrassed. Jane simply placed a hand on the desk, not touching her, but close enough that Emma could feel the warmth. You don't have to say it to know what it means, Jane whispered. Sometimes, we just feel the word. And for the first time, Emma believed someone might understand her silence. Weeks passed, and Emma began to look forward to class. She learned to read slowly, sounding out each word as Jane smiled and nodded with quiet encouragement. After class, they would sometimes talk, or rather, Jane would talk and Emma would listen, answering in shy smiles and gestures. One afternoon, Jane found Emma sitting by the window long after everyone else had gone. Rain tapped against the glass. You stayed late, Jane said softly. I like it here, Emma managed, each word careful, trembling, but hers. Jane smiled, that tender, glowing smile that always made Emma's chest ache. Then stay. I'll make tea. They sat in silence as the rain fell, the world small and gentle around them. Jane read aloud from a poetry book, slowly, with pauses, letting the words breathe. Emma watched her lips move. Each word sounded like something sacred. When Jane reached a line that read, "Love begins where words end," she paused and looked up. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Something shifted. Quietly. Irrevocably. Jane knew she was crossing lines she shouldn't, teacher, student, boundaries, professionalism. But she also knew love when she saw it. Emma didn't need perfect sentences. Her love spoke through small acts, a cup of tea left on Jane's desk, a flower pressed into her notebook, a letter written in shaky handwriting that simply read, "You make me brave." Jane kept the note in her pocket for weeks. Their relationship deepened in quiet ways, hands brushing, smiles shared, moments that stretched too long to be just friendly. Until one evening, after class, Emma said something she'd been practicing for days. Jane. I love you. Her voice cracked, uneven. But the words were clear. Jane's breath caught. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Oh, Emma, she whispered. You just said the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Their lips met, soft, trembling, full of everything unspoken. Outside, the night was silent. Inside, love finally found its sound. When the rumors began, they spread quickly. Other teachers whispered. The headmistress called Jane in for a meeting. You're a respected teacher, Jane. This could cost you your job. Jane defended Emma fiercely. She's an adult. She's brilliant. She's brave. And she's not defined by her difficulties. But the world was less kind than love hoped. Jane resigned before they could fire her. She found work tutoring privately. Emma followed, not as a student anymore, but as her partner. Years later, Emma's speech had improved. She still struggled, but she read poetry now, the same one Jane once read to her. They lived together in a small cottage near the sea, quiet and full of books. Sometimes, Emma would stand by the window and whisper words she once feared. Home. Love. Jane. And Jane would smile, every time, knowing that love had taught them both something words never could. That the truest language is the one spoken by the heart. Would you like me to continue with a part 2 story, a continuation of their life together, perhaps where they face a challenge or help others with disabilities through their shared experience? The cottage was small but full of warmth. Books lined every wall, a kettle always hummed, and soft music played from an old radio. Emma had grown stronger, still shy, still slow with words, but her confidence shone through her every gesture. Every morning, Jane would sit by the kitchen table marking papers, while Emma practiced reading out loud from her favorite poetry book. The sea is like, she paused, searching for the word. Glass, Jane said with a smile. Like me. Emma laughed softly, her voice warm with love. Yes. Like you. Their love wasn't dramatic, it was steady. Built from patience, routine, and quiet devotion. Every Friday, they walked along the shore. Emma collected shells, Jane took photos, and together they watched the tides come and go, like time itself moving gently around them. One day, Jane received a letter from the adult learning center she'd left years ago. They were launching a new program for adults with learning difficulties, focused on speech, expression, and emotional growth. They wanted Jane to lead it. Jane hesitated. I don't know if I can go back, she said softly. Emma placed her hand on hers. You can. You must. Jane smiled. Only if you come with me. And so, they returned, not as teacher and student, but as partners and advocates. Jane taught again, and Emma became her assistant, helping others who struggled like she once did. At first, Emma was nervous. Speaking in front of a group terrified her. But Jane whispered before every class. You don't need to be perfect, love. Just be you. That's enough. And so, Emma began to share her story, how she once hated her voice, how love made her believe in it again. Her halting speech carried power. Her words, though few, touched hearts. The students adored her. Because she didn't teach from books, she taught from courage. Not everything was easy. One winter, Jane fell ill, a lingering cough that wouldn't fade. Doctors found a shadow on her lungs. Emma's world cracked. She couldn't find the words to ask all the questions screaming inside her. She simply sat beside Jane's hospital bed, holding her hand tight, whispering fragments of prayers she didn't know how to finish. Don't leave, she murmured one night, tears wetting Jane's palm. I'm not going anywhere, Jane whispered, weak but certain. Love doesn't leave. It just changes shape. Jane recovered slowly, but the scare changed them both. They realized time was precious. That love, no matter how strong, must be spoken while it can. Months later, Jane organized a community event called the Festival of Voices, where people with speech challenges could perform, read, or simply stand and be heard. Emma opened the event. Standing on the small stage, she looked out at the crowd, faces expectant, kind, waiting. Her heart pounded. She held the microphone with trembling hands and began. I used to hate my voice. Pause. Now. I know, it's mine. Tears filled eyes across the room. Jane stood at the side, hand over her heart. This is my teacher, Emma continued, her voice shaking but proud. She taught me, love is the best language. The crowd erupted in applause. And Jane, unable to hold back, ran onto the stage, took Emma's hand, and kissed her in front of everyone. It wasn't about bravery or rebellion anymore. It was about truth. Years later, when Jane passed away peacefully in her sleep, Emma sat at her desk and wrote a letter. Her handwriting was still uneven, her spelling imperfect, but her words clear. You taught me to speak, to read, to love. You are my forever teacher. Your voice still lives inside my heart. She opened a small school in Jane's memory, the Glass House for Learning, where anyone, no matter their ability, could learn to find their voice. And on the wall by the entrance, she placed a plaque that read, Love begins where words end. Jane Glass. Every morning, Emma touched the plaque before opening the classroom door, whispering quietly, I love you, Jane. And even in silence, the answer always came, soft, steady, and true. I love you too.